In this video, you'll learn techniques for sculpting the human face and creating realistic facial features. A sculpture that shows a person's head and shoulders is called a bust. The first step when constructing a bust sculpture is to make a hollow armature. Anything that is thicker than your thumb that you make out of clay must be hollow so it does not explode in the kiln firing. When sculpting a bust, begin with 2 pieces of clay. One about the size and shape of an egg that will become the head, and another about the size and shape of a small potato that will become the shoulders. Don't use all your clay to make the bust. Make sure you save some for sculpting the facial features, hair, clothes, and other details. The first thing we must do to make this egg and this potato hollow is to turn them into pinch pots. To create a pinch pot, shape your clay into a sphere, and then press your thumb into the center. Then pinch and turn to enlarge the hole. This is hollow enough. As long as the clay is finger thickness or thinner, that is thin enough it will not explode in the kiln. So there is a hollow head piece of clay. Now when I hollow out the small potato that will become the shoulders, I want to make a long opening. So for this one, I'm going to make a 2-thumb pinch pot that is long like a canoe. I'm still going to pinch the sides until there is no part that is thicker than my thumb. Now that I have a hollow piece for the head and a hollow piece for the shoulders, I'm ready to put them together. When you are assembling the bust, start by poking a hole through the top of the shoulders. That will be like a neck. And let those shoulders rest on your hand, kind of like a finger puppet. Next, place the head on the shoulders, keeping your finger so that you do not accidentally close up that hole. Next, blend the clay from the head onto the shoulders, or from the shoulders onto the head, and rotate the bust sculpture as you go, making sure that you blend that clay all the way around. Now this is hollow. The hole goes all the way through, just like in our samples, but this is quite a thick neck. So the next step is to squeeze the neck. Make sure that you don't allow that hole to collapse. So keep your finger in there and then gently and carefully pinch that neck down as thin or as thick as you want. As you're doing this step, you can start sculpting out the jaw and the chin. Make sure that your bust armature stands up the way you want it to. When you have finished sculpting the basic hollow form of your armature, you are ready to start adding the facial features. The first step is to take your thumbs and place them right where you want the eyes to go, and then gently press eye sockets into the head. Just by pressing in your thumbs, you've already started to sculpt out the nose. Now I need some eyeballs to put in these eye sockets. When you are sculpting eyeballs, roll out small spheres of clay. You want the 2 eyes to be the same size sphere, and they should fit neatly in the eye sockets that you pressed into the skull. The next step is to sculpt some eyelids. To do this, I am rolling out a thin coil of clay. It doesn't take much, and you want your clay to be nice and moist. If your clay is too dry, it will crack when you pinch your coil flat into a tiny thin slab. This is going to be a single eyelid. Take your tiny slab and lay it right over where the eyeball sits in the eye socket. That's the top eyelid. Now I'm going to do the same for the bottom eyelid, gently pinching my tiny coil into a tiny thin slab, which I will then lay over the bottom part of the eyeball. Okay, so now we have an eyeball with two eyelids, and the next step is just to blend that eyelid right onto the skin of the face. And the same for the lower lid as well. If you are sculpting a tiny face and your fingers are just too big to blend with, you can use a toothpick to blend. So here I have one eye with eyelids and one eye without. Let's add eyelids to the other eye. Again, I'm taking just a tiny amount of clay and rolling out a thin little coil. We don't need much. I'm going to pinch that coil flat into a tiny thin slab, and I will lay that slab over where the eyeball sits in the eye socket. Same for the bottom. Pinch my tiny coil into a tiny thin slab. It's a little too long. I have extra, so I can just rip some off. This is enough. Place it where it goes, and then start to blend using a toothpick or another tool if your fingers don't fit in the area you're blending. Okay, now we have two eyes with eyeballs and eyelids, and the next step is to poke a pupil into those eyes. You could use a toothpick or a skewer, and when you are choosing where to poke those pupils, make sure they're looking in the same direction, and poke a hole pretty deep, like all the way into that person's brain. If you choose to add color to your sculpture with glaze or with acrylic paint, you can paint on the iris later, but if you want to sculpt some details for the iris, you can use a toothpick or another small tool to carve in the fibers of the iris muscle. When sculpting a nose, begin by rolling your clay into a coil that gets thinner on one end, like a carrot. The round end of your coil will be the tip of the nose. Then you just need two small spheres of clay of approximately the same size to be the nostrils. Then you're going to just blend that nose into the skin of the face around it, and use a toothpick or a skewer to poke holes in the nostrils. All right, now that we've got the eyes and the nose, I will show you how I sculpt a mouth. When sculpting the mouth, begin by rolling out a coil of clay. Split it into two. Allow your coils to taper at the edge so that they get thinner. These are the lips, and you can shape them into any facial expression you want. If you want to add more detail to the top lip, you can sculpt the Cupid's bow by pressing down right in the center of the top lip. When blending the lips onto the skin of the face, don't blend the two lips together, but do blend the outer edge of each lip onto the skin of the face around it. So if you want to change the shape of any part of your sculpture, you can carve away or attach more clay. I'm going to attach more clay to give this person a more pronounced chin. Now I want to give this person a more pronounced brow. 2 coils. When I'm sculpting an ear, I just pinch a little piece of clay into an oval shape. And remember, from the proportions of the head, an ear normally goes from the tip of the nose up to the eyebrow. So you can measure your ear against the face to see if it's the right size. And measure your 2 ears against each other. Blend towards the front of the face, leaving the back of the ear unblended. And then you can start to sculpt the cartilage of the ear and even the ear hole if you want, using a toothpick. Now I'm going to show you one easy way to add an outfit to your person. Here's how you would make a t-shirt on your person. Start by rolling out a thin coil. Remember, if it cracks, just add water. So this coil I will place where the neck of the t-shirt will go. Right now it looks like a necklace or a collar, but I am now going to blend the lower edge of that coil into the shoulders that I sculpted on the bust. And just like that, by blending one edge, it leaves the illusion that there is a layer of fabric over the skin of the neck. You can make any kind of outfit for your person that you want, as long as it is school appropriate. Okay, now I'm going to show you a couple different methods for adding hair to your sculpture. One technique you can use to add hair is just to roughly pinch out some flat slabs of clay, basically just flattened blobs, that you can place on the head and use a toothpick or another tool to start sculpting the individual strands of hair. Another method that you can use to sculpt the hair is to roll out individual coils and place them on. You do need to blend the coils somewhere onto the head so that they do not fall off as your clay dries. One way to disguise the blending is to blend the coil so that it is poking straight up and then fold that coil over. Add texture to those coils, just like I showed you with the slab. Another fun technique for creating hair for your sculpture is to use this kitchen tool, a garlic press. pinch the ends together so that it doesn't fall apart. Make sure that you blend onto your sculpture so that this doesn't fall off as your sculpture dries. And I recommend, if you are using a garlic press, that you press that hair fairly dense against the sculpture, because individual single strands of those extruded tiny coils do tend to break. So they will be stronger and more likely to survive the firing if you just gently compress them. Give your person any haircut you want, and remember to look at the back of your sculpture as well, because 3D work is meant to be seen in the round. If you find any weak spots happening in your sculpture, just get a little bit extra clay and blend onto the weak spot to reinforce it. And if you mess something up, just smooth it out and try again. So I accidentally blended away the back collar of this person's t-shirt, but I can fix that with another coil. Okay, this person is almost done. I just need a little bit more hair on the top of their head. If you find that any part of your bust sculpture is sagging down because the clay is too soft, all you need to do is make a prop, a little pillow or cushion that will help hold the clay in the position you want while it's drying. So a crumpled up paper towel can be enough to support your clay as it's drying. If you need something stronger, maybe you can find an object that is just about the right height to make a prop for your sculpture. If the whole thing is sagging down too much, you can stuff the inside full of paper towels to help it hold its shape more sturdily until it is ready for firing in the kiln. Now I'll make a jacket for this person using the same technique that I used to make the collar of their shirt. Rolling out a coil, that will be the edge of the fabric, and blending one side of those coils onto the clay around it. And don't forget to turn your sculpture and check the back as well. If you're still working, be sure to seal your sculpture in a bag so that it does not dry out. I think this little person is ready to dry out and go in the next bisque firing. Happy sculpting!